Hello, kindred spirits. How are you today? I'm Adrian, your host with Sushina Gypsy, pattern priestess, walker between worlds. And this is a space where we translate the unseen into the embodied and where patterns become power. I'm here today to talk about this Mercury retrograde in Pisces and how it is all part of a larger dissolving cycle preparing us for sovereignty. But before we start, I invite you to take a minute, place your hand on your heart, your other hand on your solar plexus or your sacral chakra, and we're going to breathe in for the count of 4, hold for the count of 4, and then we're going to exhale on the count of 7. Are you ready? I invite you to take another breath if it is absolutely necessary. I'm recording this on March 2nd, 2026. It was a whole plan to record this. In fact, there was attempts to record this last week before Mercury retrograde. But Mercury retrograde has definitely shown its expression quite well in life. So let's start off talking about the overlapping cycles. I'm going to start with the big ones, like the precessional shift, right? We have a 26,000 year roundabout, 26,000 years precessional shift, where we're moving from the age of Pisces, moving into the age of Aquarius. That in itself is a 2,160 year cycle, part of that larger 26,000 year cycle. But there's no exact data on this because of the way Earth wobbles on its axis. And that full cycle being around 26,000 years, yeah, you can give or take sometimes a few hundred years for that self. Either way, the transition here is apparent. We have the solar maximum going on. That's an 11-year cycle. We've been getting bombarded with solar flares and neutrinos. I gotta tell you, I love it. I'm all about just fill me up, baby. I want those neutrinos. I want those upgrades. Yes, let me live through this, even if I'm whining about it. But let's go back and talk about the age of Pisces, right? The age of Pisces roughly began around the time that large faith-based institutions rose to prominence. Those themes of martyrdom, self-sacrificing, escapism, right? All of those themes have been heavy. A lot of fear-based themes running through this age of Pisces as well. And as we move into the age of Aquarius, those themes center around decentralization, technology, networks, sovereignty, and those have been pretty apparent, I might have to say. Now, there's prophecies and revelations about the Dark Ages and salvation times. But I don't think we need the fear-based scripts to see that we're at the end of a chapter. I mean, hello, right? Are we not trying to move from the fear and work with the fear to face the fear instead? I believe we're in a time where it's not about waiting to be saved by God, by any deity, by any God. I think we give away our power in that. I believe this cycle is really about us standing in our own sovereignty. Is there a humbleness? in realizing that we don't have control over everything and that we can co-create with source. Absolutely. But I think it's about standing in our own sovereignty. And when we when we stand in our own sovereignty after handing over our power for so long, there's resistance. Resistance in ourselves from years of programming. I mean, how many people are in actual denial over the things that they're hearing and seeing? We see it in our own families. People will see what they want to see. We don't want to think that we've been programmed. I mean, because that makes us feel even more powerless. But there's also resistance from the powers that be, right? The government, medical institutions, corporations, people using their resources for dark instead of enlightenment. And that other side, they're going through their own greedy grief. I mean, just think about it when you want to change a habit, right? Usually you got to work through the ego. There's resistance. I mean, until this point in time, most of us have not realized that we hold all of our trauma in our body, in our muscles, not just from this lifetime, but from other lifetimes as well. We have been programmed and taught to not listen to our bodies, to shut things down. And so subconsciously, there's that resistance, right? But where are you done being the martyr? Where are you done being the victim? I mean, are you angry enough? Depressed enough? Bored enough? What edge of extreme propels you into the change that this way of living no longer works? This is the culmination of the energy, just a small part, right? Of moving, of the planets moving in and changing. So let's talk about those planets, right? The culmination of compounded events that are pushing us to be better if you choose. We had Pluto move from Capricorn into Aquarius for the finale for the next 20 years on November 19th, 2024, letting us all know exactly where the patriarch was just way out of control and where we could totally start to see that crumble, right? In 2025, we had the year of the wood snake, simultaneous with a number 9 year. That does not happen very often. We also had Mercury and Venus both go retrograde in Aries, moving back to Pisces last March. Mercury was at 9 degrees of Aries, moved back to 26 degrees of Pisces, and Venus, she was at 10 degrees of Aries, moving back to 26 degrees of Pisces. Saturn and Neptune moved into Aries last year. Neptune on March 30th moved to 2 degrees of Aries, then turned retrograde July 4th last year, and re-entered Pisces back on October 22nd of 2025, and where it stayed at 29 degrees until January of 26th of this year. And Saturn moved into Aries May 24th, moving to 1 degree of Aries, then turned retrograde on July 13th, 2025, where it moved back to 25 degrees of Pisces until it stationed direct on November 27th, and then moved its way into Aries on February 13th. Saturn and Neptune conjunct every 36 years. The last cycle starting in Capricorn. But at 0 degrees of Aries, this is a world point. This conjunction has not been reached in over 4,386 years. This credit goes to Heather Ensworth Research. She's an amazing astrologer. Uranus. Uranus moved into Gemini last July 7th, until the 6th of September, where it reached 1 degree of Gemini, and then it stationed retrograde and moved back to 27 degrees of Taurus. It just stationed direct on February 3rd, and it will stay in Taurus until April of 2025. So last year we had like a little preview, a test, right? We had Ceres move into Aries on May 17th, and she'll remain there until March 16th this year, when she moves to Taurus. She's about agricultural reform movements, food supply activism, survival instincts rising, protective maternal activism, women stepping into warrior leadership modes. And in your personal life, she can symbolize passive caretaking, beginning self-sustaining nourishment, feeding what strengthens your identity. And she asks, where are you nourishing dependency, or are you cultivating strength? Sedna. Now, Sedna is a trans-Neptunian object that takes about 11,400 years to travel through the zodiac. She entered Gemini back in June of 2023. Her story is one of betrayal, exile, deep ancestral trauma, environmental reckoning, survival in extreme conditions, and feminine rage beneath the ice. In Gemini, she influences frozen trauma entering language, ancestral pain become a narrative, silent stories surfacing, and environmental truth moving through information networks. Sound familiar? Exposure brings the end of silence. We'll have Jupiter move into Leo on June 30th of 2026, where he'll move from Cancer, a water sign, into fire. He'll remain there until July 27th of 2027. And he'll be followed by the nodes moving into Aquarius and Leo, the North Node in Aquarius, the South Node in Leo on July 27th, 2026, where they'll stay until March 27th of 2028. And more intensely, doing their duty, we've had the compounded lunar events, beginning with the simultaneous beginnings and endings, right? On August 23rd of 2025, we had a series of new moons, starting with the Virgo new moon at 0 degrees. 20 days later, it was followed by the solar eclipse new moon in Virgo at 29 degrees on September 21st of 2025. From there had been 6 consecutive new moons at 28 degrees. Several of those months have had significant planetary ingressions or stations around that time. And the last new moon that we'll have at 28 degrees will be March 18th, 2026 in Pisces. That's a 6-month cycle. Absolutely fascinating, because planting new seeds from the edge of completion and Source saying, okay, let's build the pressure of aligning our conscious awareness and our subconscious patterns before we close the chapter for the finale. Mercury is here to help you recalibrate that so that the new cycle can actually take root. So let's get to Mercury now. When Mercury retrograde moves through a water sign, it doesn't just edit words. It edits emotional interpretation. We will all have the opportunity, in fact, several, to work through the other aspects of emotions this year and the next. The repetitive themes to remember throughout these next 2 years with Mercury being our emotional imprints, our psychological and spiritual contracts, and where we will decide to rewire and reprogram where we would like to be in life. Mercury is how your mind organizes reality. He's mutable. He's in each of his signs: Gemini, air, where he's exalted, as well as Virgo, who's earth. In Sagittarius, he's in detriment. In Pisces, he's in fall. If we're in the day and age of reframing, reviewing our perceptions, and of course, this is perfect for Mercury retrograde in Pisces, I would beg to differ. These signs are where is I would beg to differ where these signs are weaker for Mercury. Is there not a spectrum for each expression of any concept? And are we not in the age of realizing and releasing old patriarchal systems, which astrology has certainly applied its belief to? Conscientious has grown. The world has grown. Does that not include astrology and the interpretations set forth? Now, Mercury's core function is communication, thinking patterns, perception, language, information exchange, translation, curiosity, movement, commerce, contracts, technology, and it's the lower octave of Uranus. As an archetype, he moves between the unconscious and the conscious, from thought to speech, the messenger between worlds, the psychopomp, guiding you between realms. Boundary crossing makes him that walker between worlds. He's the trickster. Hello, coyotes. He's the merchant. He's the inventor of language. Psychologically, he's your mental metabolism, how you process your cognitive style, how slow or fast you think, humor, verbal defenses, mental anxiety or agility, your attention span, and your curiosity style. In your nervous system, he rules your speech rhythm, your breath pattern, your synaptic firing, verbal regulation, anxiety loops, pattern recognition. When regulated, there's clarity. When dysregulated, there's overthinking and fragmentation. Now, on the shadow side, gossip, manipulation, scattered attention, nervous exhaustion, talking instead of doing, and intellectual superiority. And when he's retrograde, it's about rethinking, revising, renegotiating, reorganizing, recalibrating, repatterning, anything that needs to be revised, to have the RE on the beginning of it. And Pisces, let's talk about Pisces. Mutable, water, the last sign of the zodiac, traditionally ruled by Jupiter, modernly ruled by Neptune. Two fish swimming in the opposite directions, representing spirit and matter, escape versus transcendence, fantasy versus faith. Pisces is about karmic endings, completion cycles. It's the ocean, taking on what you're exposed to. Think about it. Temperature, minerals, pollutants, vibrations. Over time, water concentrates. Evaporation removes the light elements, and what is left? Salt, mineral deposits, sediment, leaving what remains more potent. Pisces governs the invisible field, the grief, the fear, the emotional and energetic substrate where patterns accumulate long before they manifest. Longing that accumulates beneath the systems. Remember, energy seeks expression. Grief, not metabolized, becomes background heaviness. Desire, not acknowledged, becomes restless projection. Fear, not examined, becomes subtle or not so subtle. Decision-making bias. This has all been an invitation, a pressure cooker, to clear the emotional sediment before we build our new worlds. Now remember, we are 60 to 70% of water. Take that into account when we're listening about the water signs. Pisces also represents dissolution, spiritual permeability, compassion, imagination, surrender, mysticism, dream states, unity consciousness. Pisces is highly intuitive, emotionally porous, empathic, a symbolic thinker, non-linear processing, and dream-oriented. And the nervous system, absorb the environment, baby. Sensitive to subtle cues, can overwhelm easily, needs solitude to clear, and processes through imagination and emotion. The higher expressions of Pisces is compassion without self-erasure, creative channeling, mystical intelligence, surrender without collapse, and trusting in timing. The shadow expressions of Pisces: martyrdom, escapism, addiction, confusion, lack of boundaries, spiritual bypassing. Now, when we put Mercury and Pisces together, this is about intuitive thinking, symbolic language, poetic expression, blurred logic, channeling versus linear reasoning. And retrograde, Mercury and Pisces retrograde is about revisiting dreams, reworking your faith, reevaluating intuition, clearing psychic noise, boundary recalibration, revisiting emotional memory, revising intuitive perception, bringing your subconscious thought patterns into awareness. Mercury needs to swim through Pisces, leaving the mind to become an ocean and stop the spreadsheet. Mercury stationed retrograde on February 26th at 1:48 a.m. at 22 degrees of Pisces. Now the Sabian symbol for 22 degrees is a materializing medium given seance. Dane Rudyard is the man that I have followed for the Sabian symbols, who is actually, I follow through James Burgess's website. Now, he gives a little bit of an elaboration of the Sabian symbols where living is dying, noticing how people suffer and live in confusion. And he moves back to 8 degrees of Pisces when he turns direct on March 20th, 2026. That Sabian symbol is a jockey spurs his horse, intent on outdistancing his rivals. This is all about intention and determination to succeed. His pre-shadow started on the 12th of February, and his post-shadow will end April 9th of 2026. His influence strong. Now, behind the scenes in your own life, there are thought patterns and emotional currents shaping your reactions long before you consciously decide anything. This isn't about visible events. It's about the visible momentum. Pisces teaches us that what we ignore doesn't dissolve. It compounds. And that is the same with our thoughts. It compounds, then dissolves when the pressure point is past its prime. And, ooh, baby, do we got some pressure points? So now let's take a look at the other celestial bodies in Pisces that certainly play into the themes of revelation, revision, and rewiring. Venus and Nessus are exactly conjunct, the planet of love merging with the asteroid that very boldly states the buck stops here. This is where the glamour starts to peel back in thicker layers, revealing the generational trauma, not only collectively, but in our personal lives as well. What generational trauma has played out in our lives that is asking us to stop? The Sun and the North Node are conjunct at 8 degrees with Pallas Athene, a goddess asteroid representing wisdom, strategy, and pattern recognition, is at 10 degrees. Next to Selene, the fairy godmother vibes, fusing the energy of intuitive and strategic opportunities abound that are divinely protected. Venus, Pallas Athene, and Selene all dance together at 8 degrees on the 17th of February, the Aquarius solar eclipse and start of the year of the fire horse. It's important energy to fuse with that Sabian symbol we described earlier. Mercury's retrograde not only influences Pisces, the house it's transiting, but also the houses of Gemini and Virgo. I pulled several asteroids for this chart, centering on communication and the divine feminine. It was quite interesting to see how many asteroids were in Gemini and how several were conjunct. Eros, Anubis, and Psyche had their own little stellium going on. Downloads of how our own immortal souls are deeply transformational and moving into a creative life force that fuels our voice and the way we are living. We've got Isis, Horus, and Hypnos dancing together in the later degrees, bringing a rebirth, a transformation, transmutation of how you move through the world subconsciously. This stellium squares Persephone and Pisces, the goddess of the underworld, of initiation. It's an invite to move through and into this lightness amongst the dark, into your own inner world. Sedna is in her prime of Gemini at the very beginning, asking us to let go of the thoughts that no longer serve. And Osiris, a few degrees away, offering his own flavor of rebirth, transformation, and regeneration. How beautiful of a dance with this energy in Gemini a few months before Uranus moves into this house into this sign for the next 7 years. And speaking of Uranus, he sits at 27 degrees of Taurus, conjunct the fixed star Algol, an energy representing losing one's head, literally or metaphorically. Algol is the star in the constellation of Perseus that represents the head of Medusa, another dark goddess whose story, like most Greek mythology, suffers the consequences of being violated by a man and then villainized. Her story of turning those who looked at her into stone signifies a story of transformation with hardcore boundaries. Pegasus, the black-winged horse, and Chrysaor, a winged warrior, were the sons born from the drops of blood from her decapitated head. Both sons an expression of protection. This energy here is pretty intense alone. Uranus in Taurus, he slowly sends shockwaves to your body, to the foundation of that which you ever thought existed. He rules Aquarius with Saturn and happens to be square Mars, Chariklo, a centaur asteroid and the wife of Zeus, and who has the ability to hold space for others without trying to fix him. And back to Medusa. Our lovely goddess representing boundaries is conjunct Chariklo next to Vesta, the goddess that keeps your pilot light aflame. And in Aquarius, we have Pluto sitting at 4 degrees, adding the necessary layers of diminution and empowerment. How beautiful is this? Do you see the repetitive themes of where we're being asked to step into our body, to match our body with what's going on with our mind, and to create transformation, to work through transformation? Yeah, we have some friction, sending shockwaves straight through our bodies to ignite this action. Action to step into what lights up inside your body. Where will you take no more? Where will you finally set boundaries? Where are you able to hold space for others, for the collective, without the need to fix things and without reacting in your body? Empaths, this is loud and clear for us. Uranus, among a few other planets, have really emphasized us being in our bodies the last few years. Uranus is asking us to listen because our bodies have these amazingly customized placements of antennae. Now Hecate is in Capricorn, the goddess of crossroads, trines Uranus. Do you listen to your body and stand in your own sovereignty, or is the choice to still continue to dissociate and restrict the information? Mind over matter has been such an amazing quote, but mind over matter works only so well if you're not listening to your body. It's when you match the two and listen to your body to begin with that creates that balance. We're in a society that has been completely dissociated from our bodies. My passion as a healer and working throughout this medicinal system has seen the failure of refusing to listen to what our bodies are saying and dissociate it even more by taking a pill. There are many of us that have been invited to listen to that lesson the hard way. This, my friends, is a whole other episode, not entirely focused on astrology. Juno in Capricorn is at 20 degrees and is sextile Venus and Nessus. This is the opportunity to fess up and release any karma and commence a new commitment to stop the bullshit that has been going on for the time that it has. Now let's move on to Capricorn's opposite side and talk about Jupiter, retrograde at 15 degrees, conjunct the fixed star Sirius, who represents intense passion and devotion, a star of the divine feminine, and for you starseeds, a Pleiadian planet, a Pleiadian fixed star. In Cancer, Jupiter is bringing ancestral beliefs and memories most often associated with the maternal line. With Sirius here, the divine feminine refers to the feminine aspect of ourselves. Jupiter is trine Venus and Nessus, offering more protection, more compassion, and more strength to hold these nurturing beliefs and to end these contracts. Jupiter is asking us to refrain from assumptions and judgment and have compassion. Jupiter's squared to Aries in Chiron, the wounded healer, Eris, the goddess of discord, the energy where we reject ourselves, and Ceres, the goddess of nurturing, of how you hold on and how you let go and your capacity to receive in life. And next to Ceres is Cassandra, a woman whose gift of precise intuition is cursed with rejection and rebuff, again, because of displeasing a man who wanted her to own her for his own, and then by no choice of her own was given as a concubine to another man. There the curse was, where nobody would listen to her prophecies. How appropriate, how repetitive these themes. This square invites us to intensely reflect on where we reject our own wounds of staying complacent for the patriarch, where we disbelieve our own intuition, and where in our lineage does this story repeat itself. Jupiter retrograde offers the help, the strength, the wherewithal to show ourselves compassion and the invitation to release that story that has been held in the depths of the ocean. And we can't forget Saturn and Neptune, conjunct the asteroids Destin and DNA, having their own little party at the beginning of Aries, reiterating where the stories are burning away, where the stories must be burnt so that we can stand in the new. This is the phoenix rising from the ashes energy as Neptune's gift of dissolution works with fire as Saturn directs the energy. I like to think of this energy as drying all this damn Pisces energy. As a Pisces sun myself, the last few years have definitely felt like drowning. And I'm waterlogged and need some heat. This is the energy that has set off our Mercury retrograde. Until March 20th, the day of the spring equinox, these themes will be prevalent. This energy is heavy. Pisces energy needs time to retreat, to restore. And Mercury here is no different, asking us to rest our minds through our bodies. Stay hydrated. Dehydration adheses your fascia and messes with the signals you get from source. If you're dehydrated, you're literally unable to produce the amount of DMT in your body necessary for sleep, for your connection with source. Water is important. Take some Epsom salts baths. Go walk out barefoot on the grass. Grounding mats, meditating. And no, for those of you who have issues with meditating and sitting still in one position, you don't have to meditate like that. Meditation can be through movement, through crocheting, through coloring, through work of arts, right? Like painting, drawing, walking, dancing, all of that can be quite meditative. Meditative meaning what gets you into that trance where time is boundless and the thoughts don't bombard your mind. Body work such as acupuncture, craniosacral therapy, massage, Reiki, those are all great for your body. And then of course we've got some grounding foods, proteins, beans, root vegetables, seaweed salad that are amazing to help you with some of this grounding. Listen to solfegial frequencies. Aromatherapies such as angelica, lavender, oak moss, yarrow, rose instantly raise your vibration and smell quite lovely as well. Gemstones, I suggest. I'm a big fan of black tourmaline, obsidian, and hematite throughout this Pisces cycle. If you tend to lean more toward a depressed state, I would try some amethyst or tiger's eye, maybe some turquoise. Do some of the colored obsidians or tourmalines, and colored kyanites work as well. This is a month where compassion and care for your own energy is absolutely essential. It is the preparation before the big takeoff. We have plenty of transits and ingresses that will emphasize this rest this month. Now, with that, my friends, kindred spirits, I'm going to end this session. If you have stayed here to the end, I thank you. Please hit subscribe and like or share with others if they might find this interesting. I look forward to our time together, and may you be blessed every day in every way.